Chris.
I'm Scott.
We're Two Guys Brewing. We're got a bunch of friends with us here tonight. We're all brewers. We all belong to a local brew club, and basically we're here to show you how to brew beer. How to brew. I swear I'm sober.
Gonna do another easy beginner beer tonight.
We are.
It's a little malt extract, some hops.
We're not doing a kit this time. We're just basically making up a recipe on the fly, and then we're gonna go from there and kind of compare it to the other beer we did last week, which was a kit. This will be actually a little bit less involved. There's only a few ingredients, just malt extract and hops. And we're going to get going in a few minutes here.
All right.
Let's see if we can't introduce everybody. So,
come on over here. Julie.
You all can introduce yourselves.
Yeah. Well, let's move around here a little bit.
So, just say your name. And say hi.
I'm Harry.
Hi. I'm Julie.
I'm Pete.
I'm Sue. And we all belong to the same brew club.
We do.
Yes, we're part of the Northern Chautauqua Homebrewers.
There's brew clubs all over the country. So I would recommend, if you want to get into brewing, a brew club is a great place to exchange information.
And learn from the experience of other members.
Yeah. Get together at least once a month, have a good time. Seek out your local homebrew store. They'll hook you up with your homebrew club if you're having trouble finding it.
Yeah.
Probably the best people you'll ever meet.
Yep, great. What is it? They're like 50, 60 maybe in ours, 40 any given month.
Yes.
And
Yes.
great.
Probably a lot more that don't show up every month.
That's right. It's a great group.
Yeah, if you're when you're buying ingredients, I mean, you can go online and you can find almost anything you want, and you know that you can get some really good deals online. But your local homebrew store is invaluable. They've got all the information. If you got a question, you can call them up and they'll answer the question over the phone. You can go down there and you got two different things in your hand. You go, what's the difference between this? They're going to know what the difference is between an amber malt and a light malt, or between a wheat malt and a rye malt.
Or you could just buy a kit and follow the instructions.
Oh, we did that last week. They got kits too.
Or buy a kit and maybe not follow the instructions.
That's very special. Experiment.
Make it your own.
Make it your own. But yeah, definitely you should patronize your local homebrew store, because if you don't, sometime when you do need them, they won't be there anymore. So you definitely want to find out who's local and spend some money there and get to know them. And
take advantage of their knowledge.
They've got it. They've got it in spades.
They've done it for a while, so.
All right. So,
All right, time for some water.
So yeah, let's get some water going. We're gonna actually do
People ought to get right for a while.
we're gonna do another 5-gallon batch, just like last week. Except this week we're actually gonna do a full 5-gallon boil instead of trying to do like a partial boil and then adding water at the end. So we got 2 pots, because I do have a pot big enough, but for our demonstration purposes tonight we're going to do a split boil. So we're going to put about 2.5 gallons in each, maybe a little more, because we're going to lose some to evaporation. So we're going to get that started, get some fire going. While we're doing that, we got some basic terms that I wanted to go over with everybody. Make sure you watch the first 3 or 4 episodes before you start brewing.
Hi, I'm Steve Spears. I'm the owner of Dunkirk Homebrew. We are a local homebrew shop here in the Dunkirk, Fredonia area, located at 3375 East Main Road, Dunkirk, New York. We are a full-line supplier of beer and wine brewing equipment and supplies. Come on down. Most of my customers become my friends. Thank you.
All right. We wanted to kind of go over just a few terms that we will probably be using and not explaining as we go along, and just to give you a general idea of what we're talking about, so you have a basic understanding of some of the real basic terms. Now, beer is made from malt. Malt is barley generally, corn or wheat. We did talk a little bit about malt before, but with the malt, that they basically get the grain wet, let it germinate, and then after it starts to germinate, roast it, and that stops the germination process, and that converts some of the starches to sugars and gets it ready to be processed into beer.
Yeah, that process of germinating and then roasting is called malting.
And there's lots of ways to do that.
It's called malt.
Yeah. There's lots of different kinds of malt, but we're just going to kind of gloss over that today. Now, once you take the malt and you get ready to make beer out of it, you have to mash the malt, and that's a process. That's a more advanced process. We're not going to do that today either. But that you basically heat the grain in water to a certain temperature, and that releases the sugars so that the yeast can actually convert it to alcohol. And you're
Extracting the
You're
sugars.
extracting the sugars, and that's
So
where
that you
this
get
comes in.
Extract.
Malt extract. And this is what we are going to use today. You'll watch our last episode. We did have liquid malt extract and dry malt extract, and they're usually abbreviated LME and DME for dry malt extract. We had both of those last time around. This time we're just going to use straight liquid malt extract. We're not doing a kit.
So we're making our own, just
Making
malt extract and hops. You can't get any simpler than that.
Yeah. And then once you put the malt into the water, that's called the boil. And usually the boil lasts 60 minutes. It can last different numbers of time. You know, it can be 90 minutes. Most of the recipes we do are going to be 60 minutes, unless we tell you otherwise. So if we forget at some point, we start talking about 40 minutes into the boil. That's what we're out of a 60-minute boil. We're at 40 minutes left in the boil.
Most recipes call for a 60-minute boil at least. Some are 90, some are a little less. But
Yeah.
essentially, that bittering hops, you're going to go for about 60 minutes to get most of the bitterness and qualities out of the oils and in the hops.
All right. And once you're done with your boil, what you have is wort. And wort is unfermented beer. It's sweet water. That's what you put your yeast into, and then the yeast converts the wort into beer. The yeast turns the sugars into alcohol and carbon dioxide, which are both very important. And some of the ingredients that you're going to put into your beer, into your wort, hops, which is a female flower of the hops plant, grows on a vine. All right, so pelletized, looks like rabbit food, and that's when you're buying a kit. That's generally what comes in the kit. I order it online, and usually it comes in a pelletized form. But you can get it, like a dried hops or dried leaf hops. An ounce of hops is an ounce of hops. It doesn't matter what form it's in.
You can actually even get hops extract and oils and stuff, but that's not very common. I've seen them in the catalogs, and I've never used it myself.
And then you can also get fresh hops. If you know somebody that grows hops, they're not dried. They tend to spoil quickly, and they have a lot of water in them, so they're a lot heavier. So an ounce of fresh hops is not the same as an ounce of dried hops. You would probably need about 9-10 times as much fresh hop.
Join your local homebrew club. You might get hooked up. Somebody will have some a couple weeks out of the year.
And fresh hops, and it's also, if you want to grow your hops, the local homebrew club's a good place to get hops rhizomes to grow your own hops. So, all right, so hops basically has two uses. The first would be as a preservative. Between the alcohol in the beer and the hops, that's what keeps your beer from going bad within a few days. Usually with the hops and the alcohol, it's going to last you a few weeks in the fridge, under refrigeration. Keep it around at least at 50. You're good for a few months. And the other would be flavoring. And you can use hops for bittering and for floral flavors. Right? Aroma hops. So if you add it at the beginning of the boil, that's more for bittering. And later in the boil, that's more for the aroma the floral flavors that you pick up, and you can taste that in the beer. I mean, the bittering hops, and you use hops for bittering, it makes the beer, that's what gives it that bitter flavor, but the different hops flavors that you get in the beer usually come from the aroma hops that are added later in the oil.
Both very important, though. Without the bittering hops, your beer would be like cloyingly sweet, and you wouldn't, like drinking maple syrup or something. So you need that bitterness to balance out that malt sweetness. And then they also add some delicious, yummy flavor with the later additions.
Yes, yes.
Especially if you like IPAs and stuff.
Yeah, if you like
you know what
IPAs.
hops are then.
Yeah, that's and then another thing we're gonna use is a primary fermenter. We did show you a couple of those last week. You got your basic ale pail as a primary fermenter, and a carboy, a glass carboy we were using as a secondary fermenter. That can be used also as a primary fermenter. You can use anything as a primary fermenter. The biggest thing is you want to make sure it's food grade. So if it's plastic, you want to make sure that it's not going to leach the chemicals into your beer. And then yeast. Most people have a pretty good idea of yeast. If you ever made bread, you've used yeast. Brewer's yeast is a little different. It's a slightly different microorganism. But that's what it is. It is a microorganism, little living thing. And so you've got to treat it as a living thing. And you put it into your beer. You don't want to put it in when the beer is 150 degrees. It'll kill the yeast. You don't want to put it in at 30 because then the yeast will die there too.
65 or 70?
Yeah.
Ideal.
Yeah, and certainly not over 100. Personal. I won't. Anything over 100 I think is a really bad idea. Yeast comes in a few different styles. Last week we used a dry yeast. Remember we just sprinkled it on top. This week we're going to use a liquid yeast. Big difference is there's generally more variety in the liquid yeasts, but they tend to have not as many yeast cells in the package, and they're much more perishable. You have to keep these refrigerated, and they do expire in it with a few months is your best bet. You don't really want to hold them too much longer than that. A dry yeast will last a lot longer, especially if you refrigerate it. We're going to play with this week. Actually, when you do put the yeast into the beer, that's called pitching the yeast. So if you hear us, when we talk about pitching the yeast, that's all it means. We're putting yeast into the wort. Priming, that's when you once the beer is done fermenting and you're ready to put it into bottles. Priming gives it a little bit more sugar for the yeast that are still in there to activate, and they produce the carbon dioxide that makes the beer fizzy. And without it, you'd have a flat beer. You can use granulated sugar, corn sugar, or dry malt extract for priming. Personally, I think granulated sugar gives the beer a bit of a sharp flavor. I don't like the way it tastes, personally. Corn sugar tends to not do that, and the dry malt extract is actually closer to beer than sugar, so it's a little bit closer in the flavor to what you're brewing. Priming buckets, basically like your ale pail. It's another bucket. The beer out of the primary, mix it with your sugar, and get it ready to go into your bottles, which would be what you do. It's called bottling. Very simple concept, bottling. Next concept is capping. Guess what you're doing with that? You're putting caps on the bottles. That's pretty much the basic terminology for brewing, at least for the kind of stuff we're going to be doing for the next few weeks. Basic procedures, you do want to sanitize everything, especially if it's going to be touching your wort after you're done boiling, when it starts to cool down. If you pull a spoon out of the cupboard and stick it in your beer when it's at 70 degrees, where you might have some wild yeast on that spoon that introduce some bacteria into the wort. At that point, once it's done boiling, before it's boiling, it really doesn't matter. Once I could stick a spoon in this water, it's going to boil in a few minutes, and you don't have to worry about it. It's going to kill everything.
Your bottle's got to be sanitized.
Your bottles have to be sanitized. Anything that's going to touch your beer, between the time that you turn the heat off and the time you drink it. You want sanitized. You can use bleach. I highly advise against it. Scott, tell them why I advise against it.
If you use bleach, you gotta rinse really, really well. And if you don't rinse really well, you get a funny flavor in your beer. And if you do rinse really well, you're exposing everything to all that tap water, which may or may not be so.
I made a really great beer a few months ago. Been making beer for 20 years, and this one time I didn't forget, I just didn't rinse as well as I thought I did. And the whole batch ended up.
Essentially ruined a batch of beer.
Tasted like Band-Aids. We drank it. Scott, we're not proud. But yeah, it was. Don't use bleach if you don't have to. Use a no-rinse sanitizer.
I like Star San. A lot of people like Ida 4. There are other ones that work just as well.
Yeah, we showed you a couple last week, and they're cheap and easy to get. But
Go to your local brewers and say which one you use.
Yeah.
all right, and like I said, most of our batches are going to be 5-gallon batches, and most of our boils are going to be about 60 minutes, like we were saying. So if we do something different, if we do a 10-gallon batch or something, we will tell you we're doing a 10-gallon batch. It'll be evident by the huge pot we're using.
Working, right?
Yeah.
I've got
Our water's
a timer going.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to start adding our malt. We
Here
got
comes some malt extract.
this is amber malt extract we're using tonight.
Both of them, right?
Yeah, we'll put one in each pot. All right. We're last week we took we did a 5-gallon batch. Like a stirring spoon.
Yeah. The mash paddle.
There you go.
Before I burn this up on the bottom.
So last week we did a 5-gallon batch, and we did it. We only boiled 2 gallons of water, and we did the whole thing, and we added cold water at the end. Tonight we're actually going to do a full boil, 5 gallons of water. We got to split between 2 pots. I do have 2 canners, so it works very well for me. So that's what we're doing tonight. We're going to put a little half in each, and we'll combine it all at the end when we're done. And real quick, we'll go through the kind of the order of operations here. You boil your water. Once the water's boiling, you add your malt extract. Usually it cools down at that point. When it heats back up, you start adding your other ingredients according to the recipe. Usually your bittering hops go in right around 60 minutes. Your flavoring hops, depends. Sometimes they all go in, at 5 minutes or a boil out. Sometimes there's several steps, you add it 45, 20, whatever, for all the recipe. And then once everything's done boiling, you take it off the heat, cool it down. Once it's cooled down to 90, 70 degrees, somewhere in that neighborhood, you're going to pitch your heat. And then you put it into your primary fermenter. Once it's done fermenting, you at that point prime with sugar, priming sugar. Take it out of and then you go from there to bottles. You bottle it, cap the bottles, let it sit and condition, and that's the tough part. 2 weeks is really the minimum. 4 weeks is good. 6 weeks is the best. I've never had a batch last 6 weeks.
How do you know when the primary is done?
There's a couple of ways. For our purposes, basically if the airlock stops working, that's a good indication. If your airlock's not working in the first place, usually a week is good. Sometimes less. Very rarely does it go more than a week. You can usually start bottling at that point. We actually, with our beer, we're bottling it 3 weeks, so we know that it's done fermenting after 3 weeks. So no question about it. If your beer is still going at 3 weeks, you probably got a problem somewhere.
Yeah, for a basic beer, because the
Right.
3 weeks should be plenty.
Right. If you're doing a high alcohol beer, a barley wine or something, which we're not going to do for a long time, but we will eventually get there. But we're not doing those for any in the near future. Those take much longer to finish fermenting out. But
Conditioning is mostly all the aging time and
Yeah,
all that.
right.
It's way past fermentation.
Yeah, once it's done fermenting, you bottle it, and it conditions. And with the kind of beers with ales, 6 weeks is really, I mean, golden. I mean, if you're doing lagers, then you're looking at longer time frames too. We're just simply doing ales at this point. Lagering is, it'll be before barley wine, but it's not going to be for a few weeks.
What's that?
All right, so we got our amber malt
rinse all that through the side of it over there.
into the kettles.
So you gotta rinse all this to the side there.
Oh yeah, throw that right in. And we bring it, once you get the malt in there, it cools down a little bit. You want to bring it back up to boiling. And then once it's back up to boiling, that's when you start pounding again. Then we're doing a 60-minute boil. So once it's boiling, that's 60.
What's in the bowls?
Hops. All right. So hops. We got some Hallertauer hops here. Hallertauer hops. About 2.5 ounces total. We're going to use half for bittering at 60 minutes and half for aroma at 5 minutes. So we'll set this one off to the side for now. And so we got about 1.25 ounces here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually, because we're doing a split boil part, we're going to split the hops half into one, half into the other. And I'd say we're close enough. So who wants to do the honors? You've been all Scotty. There you go. You know what I've done that? When you taste the hops initially, it's not bad, but then it's like a jalapeno. It catches you afterwards, and not in a good way. Not in a good jalapeno kind of way.
That's definitely tasted them like when I used to strain through a colander.
Yeah.
You'd end up with you certainly get a flavor of what they are. Yeah. At that point, they've already.
I mean, smelling hops, you can kind of smell what the flavor is going to be in the final product. This one, like I said, this is bittering, so a lot of those aromas, oils are going to boil off.
They're gone.
All we're interested in is alpha acids. We'll tell you more about alpha acids later. We're going to stir it periodically. And,
58.5 minutes.
Sure. But yeah, you do want to stir your beer, your wort, as you're cooking it. What happens is if it's not moving, you don't have to stir it constantly. But if it's not moving, it'll kind of rest against the sides and the bottom, and the part that's sitting against the bottom will tend to not so much scorch, but caramelize a little bit, and it'll change the flavor.
Yeah, definitely color get darker.
Yeah, color will get darker. So you want to stir it periodically, just keep everything moving around.
It's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, but it's hard to reproduce if you want to do it a second time. Put all the hops in the water.
We have a question for you.
Sure.
If you have boiling water like this, instead of using a wort chiller, and you've got to add water anyway, why don't you just add cold water and bring it down to 7 degrees?
You could do that, and you could probably get away with it. Most
9
of the
times out of
time.
10. Well, probably 99 times out of
But
100.
one thing you could do is take and boil 3 gallons of water the day before and cool it down. And then add that cool water. But whatever if you're not sterilizing or sanitizing, boiling, pasteurizing that water, you're risking
But you're adding
contaminating
your
your
tap water when you get done with this boil. We were doing this at 2.5 gallons.
It's not-
we had 5 gallons on a kit. A kit now. Right. We're going to boil 2.5 gallons.
And you just add your regular
Add
tap
all
water
that
to it?
stuff in it, and then you're going to add water at the end.
Just plain tap water.
After you cool this down,
Yeah.
now you're going to add 70 degree.
Yeah, you could. And you're right. You could add 30-degree tap water or 40-degree tap
Just
water.
cool it down fast.
Right. Yeah, you could. And if you're doing it that way, I'd say, yeah, 6 1/2 dozen of the other. Personally, though, we did that last week, and it just scares the bejeebies out of me dumping tap water into my beer, especially once it's cool.
We both have wells, so we don't have
My
treated
water,
city water.
we have bacteria. We know we have.
No, I know I have
We
bacteria
got
in my
stuff in our well,
water.
you know, and we'll see how that beer turns out. I'm kind of a little more concerned about the stuff that Steve took home with him than the stuff that I got
Now when
downstairs.
you're
I have a question. Question from the audience.
Shoot away! Don't worry, I edit it out. Especially when I don't know the answer.
You have well water.
Yeah.
Could you run it through a filter? Like the
Sure.
British,
Yeah.
etc. which will remove any of the
And it'll remove, it won't remove everything.
It won't remove
No.
but it'll remove more than if you use it straight from the tap.
Yes.
Yes.
It won't remove the sulfur.
It'll take out some of the sulfur and some of the odor, and take out some of the some bad taste and stuff.
Is your water conditioned?
Mine, no.
There is one of those cheapy filters down there. Promptly shut them off and
So you have
bypass
a
it every
freshwater
time.
well then?
And
Yeah,
some,
well, it smells pretty. It depends. It depends. Some days the water coming out of there is great. Other days it is just nasty.
Sulfur.
yeah.
Yeah, well,
I can smell the sulfur in it too.
yeah, but it's not. But it's a bacteria. It's not sulfur, ground sulfur. It's bacteria sulfur. So we were at 9:10. So we want to put our last hops in at 10:05.
Anybody set the timer?
Well,
So,
we just did. We were just
okay.
10:05.
And soft water, like if you have a water softener, it's generally not good to brew it.
Okay.
Um,
So for anyone that is using
All right, let me try a blend here.
well water, the recommendation for them could be to use bottled water. The gallon jugs of bottled
Or
water.
boil it. Or boil it.
Or boil. Well, you're going to boil your water anyway.
Boil it the night before because you got to add water to it.
water chemistry gets to be really complicated.
Yes, it
So
does.
there's a lot of like what you would consider bad well water
Yes,
that's great for brewing beer
I can
because
imagine.
it goes through the boiling process. So I mean, there's no
You're killing the
like
harmful bacteria.
there's not really health
anyway.
issues, but it's the
And-
chemical makeup in the water
and the minerals.
And,
The
yeah, some of the
minerals.
minerals are actually desirable.
Yeah.
And
Matter of fact, they sell
brewer's salts and different
salts,
gypsum
yeah,
and
salts,
calcium
gypsum and stuff to
and,
basically to make it your water
pH
harder.
balancers,
Wow.
yeah, to make the water hard.
Just that you should cower and cry.
This here, this is Irish moss. This is something you can throw into your wort to kind of help all the trubs settle out. Most of the time I forget to put it in, but it does help. It makes the beer a little clearer and makes it easier to get the wort off of the trub, all the stuff that settles out, the hops and everything. 1 teaspoon for a batch, last 15 minutes of the boil. I've had this forever. It's an ounce and it lasts $1.50 it cost me. Probably 3 years ago. I don't know, I gave some to Scott. He tried giving it back to me.
I use it.
You bought what you bought? Well, you bought 5 ounces or something, right?
Yeah, Super Irish Moss is on. It's a clarifying agent. Just help
It's like it's seaweed.
clear your beer. You know.
It's seaweed. So we're going to throw half a teaspoon in each one, and it just kind of. It's not a required step. I do it when I think of it, and if I don't, it's not something to worry about.
Doesn't change the flavor of your beer at all. It's strictly a clarifying agent. The whole idea is helps the protein settle out when you cool your beer. It makes for clearer beer. It helps with chill haze. And the whole point of all this whole series of brewing episodes is you can't mess up your beer. Don't sweat the little things. You can't. You really
drink it anyway.
It's really hard to make an undrinkable batch of beer. Julie, you ever have a boil over?
Absolutely not, because I pay attention to what I'm doing.
How can you do that when you're talking and drinking? I don't understand. We had one last week.
Because I usually don't do that. But I also don't leave Terry in the kitchen alone.
There you go. Good. We had one last week. It wasn't too bad. We caught it pretty quick.
Should try brewing sober sometime. I wonder how that would go.
Yeah, it'd be a disaster.
That I have right now.
But-
If you're burning water,
But
boiling water.
could it be dangerous to do?
Maybe that could be dangerous to do.
Wanna go home?
All right, we are.
They just lounge.
We're at
like,
5 minutes here, and we're going to put our last hops in.
around all the time.
Now, we're doing this split boil. I mean, you could actually dump all this hops into one. We're going to combine these later, and it wouldn't really make a heck of a lot of
Put
difference.
that hood up.
We are splitting it up between the two just to
Otherwise they could turn it.
make things simpler, but doesn't matter. You can put all your bittering hops in one at 60 and all your aroma hops in the other at 5.
Half and half.
Half and half.
Half and half.
roughly speaking. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact.
No, you're doing it all wrong.
Shoot the messenger. Shoot the messenger.
Hold it.
Hit him with the spoon. All right. So we got about 4 minutes to go here before we pull this off and start cooling it.
You let that sit overnight then?
No. We what we do with this is we water bath it.
How do you work this running water stuff? I'm not used to that.
Well, you're used to running up to the creek with a bucket.
Yeah, where's the wood?
But what we do is you get about, with my thinking, it was about 3 inches of cold water. You put the pot in there, or you can run the water in next to the pot, or whatever. Make sure the water doesn't get hot if you can avoid it. I mean, it's not the end of the world if it does get in. And then usually about 3 changes of water, kind of stir it around a little bit. 3 changes of water is usually enough to bring that temperature down to pitching temperature.
It's a good idea, folks, if you can chill your water as fast as you can.
The faster the better. This is an acceptable method. I've left the pot sitting on the stove. Yeah, go ahead. Overnight. Let me move this out of the way.
Yeah, there's other acceptable methods called no chill.
I've left it sitting on the stove overnight. It's still beer. It's not the. It's not the. Not. Yeah, you go.
Yeah, don't get any of that water in there, Harry.
But, it still turns into beer. It's still drinkable. It doesn't. It's not going to ruin it. I mean, it's. You're going to be better this way. You're going to have, it's going to better. The flavor's going to be a little bit better. The flavor's going to be a little bit better if you cool it this way, or the wort chiller's even better. The faster you cool it, the better. But sitting on the stove overnight is perfectly acceptable. I've done it before.
You cover it?
And it gets too cold.
Yeah, I would definitely cover it. If you're going to have it sit on the stove, you don't want the dust getting in there if you can avoid it. If you're going to ruin the beer, probably not. You're probably not even going to notice it. But every precaution you take is that much more towards a better product.
A different container then. Oh, thanks. Oh, no problem.
Thank you, Mom.
Okay,
Nice meeting you.
we're ready to change the water here.
But your press creams, I guess.
You need to we need to load your press up and take it up to the shop someday. He doesn't buy his toy train.
I know there's a lot of acids and stuff with it.
Close to being ready to switch the water here, though, hey? Close enough.
We'll leave that one there until
That's what I was
done.
Yeah, that's good. Yep, water's good. Got it. Take it about two. So. I think we're at about 90 degrees here, guys. This one's a little bit hotter. This one's under 100, I think. We got this cooled down to right around 90 degrees-ish. So we're going to dump it in here. Now we used that Irish moss to kind of find the trub out of this. So we're going to try not to get too much trub in here. Usually it's sitting on the bottom. You're not going to not get any if you're pouring like this, but I can definitely see some stuff moving in there, but I can see quite a bit more in the bottom. So I'm going to try and get a balance here. Yeah, I definitely got quite a bit, but I'm going to leave the worst of it in
Set it
there.
over there on the stove for a minute before you throw it away. Let it set. Go to the next pot.
Have fun.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's a really good thing. To actually, you should bring that right there.
Show that.
Right.
That's trouble.
It's there's a lot of gunk. The hops are all
Mostly
over the
hops.
bottom of the thing. It's mostly hops.
It's the proteins.
It wouldn't kill your beer, but
No, we dumped it in last week and it was
Yep.
fine. But if you can avoid dumping it in, that's better.
yeah, it is better.
Last week there wasn't a lot of trub at the bottom, and that was because we didn't use Irish moss. so it didn't, not as much settled out. So there was very little trub in the bottom. We dumped it in. It'll settle out during the ferment. But if we can keep the ferment off of that, it's going to give you a little bit better product. Yeah, if it's in there, it's not the end of the world. Half the time I dump it right in, and half the time I don't. All right. Today we're using a White Labs. This is a Belgian style yeast. All right. Now this stuff is actually severely out of date. It's actually out of date by about a year and a half.
18 months.
Yeah, about a year and a
18 months
half.
out of date.
So what that means is that this usually has about 100 billion yeast cells in it, which is about half what you would normally need to pitch in your beer. There are probably significantly less. If we're
5%.
I would say that's as a generous estimate. So we are what is called severely underpitching this.
Severely underpitching.
So if it works,
no starter, right?
apparently there is some yeast activity going on because we were shaking this up.
I should have warned you about that.
Yeah, well, I knew we were shaking it up. So there is definitely some live yeast in there. All right. So it will work. It will make beer. Is it going to be as good of a product as if it was properly pitched? No. But it's going to be entirely drinkable.
Could be as good as a product.
It could be.
You might have to fix it though.
You know, and if you do buy these yeast vials, hold on to them. Because in about a month and a half,
we're going to
2
show you
months,
how to reuse those.
we're going to show you how to reuse these. So don't throw them out. These are something you want to hold on to. Say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Happy brewing.
Happy brewing. Happy chili.
You're not leaving, Scott. Get back here.
Happy chili.
We already lost Sue. Good night, Sue.
Sue's in the car.
Sue's got to work in the morning.
So we gotta leave. That's our excuse.
All right, and this is actually a shot of our severely underpitched yeast from last week. Well, yeah, the Belgian style, and it's definitely been going. At this point, it's been going about 4 or 5 days, and it's definitely working.
It's probably on the backside of dawn.
So we're pretty happy with that.
And our bottling wand has a little pin in the bottom of it, so that when it hits the bottom of your bottle, the beer will start to flow from the autosiphon and fill up the bottle. But then when the bottle gets full, you pick it up, the beer stops flowing, and the volume that this took up in the bottle, while it was in there, leaves you the perfect amount of headspace now in the bottle. So this should be filled right to the right level, which would be somewhere about where my finger is, but the thing, supposedly.
So there we go. So bottling wand.
And that's how you know.
A nice little piece of equipment you got there. And then
They usually include one in any basic brewing kit. And, otherwise,
and this is another new piece of equipment we're using this week. This is Scott's autosiphon.
yeah, how it works is this will go down inside of our pail of beer, and we just give it a couple of pumps, and that'll start the beer flowing. We'll have this on the end of it to we'll fill our bottles.
Looks like beer. Got a little bit of scrunch floating on top, but it's just like shrub kind of stuff here. Let me show that real quick. This is nothing to be afraid of. It's not an infection or anything like that. It's just some hops and junk, shrub that floating up on top that we kind of didn't get out when we poured the beer in.
There we go. Alright, so a couple pumps. You see the beer's flowing. Now when that one gets just full right to the top, yank it out.
And there should be less foam in here than usual. Not perfect, mind you. Still got some foam. Because that might have been because it was the first one. Yeah, a lot less foam in this one.
Here at Dunkirk Homebrew, we offer a wide selection. Our malt extracts are Breeze liquid, Muntins liquids, Breeze dry malt extracts, Brewer's Best beer ingredient kits, and we carry a full line of grains from Avantgarde, German malt, Dingemans, Muntons, Breeze, a full line of specialty grains, special beef, flake rice, white wheat, you name it, we've got it. And we will crush it for you, no charge.
Yeah, I guess next week we'll do it backwards.
No, I don't think so. Kind of think this is the way to go.
Okay.
I'll rinse it out with some beer. Aroma, I gave it a 6 out of 12. I think it's still sharp, mostly due to the age. It's still young. I think that's going to improve. I think it's very clear for an ale. I'm pretty happy with that. I gave it a 2 out of 3. Now the head retention is, the lacing's a little bit weak, I think.
Lacing, yeah, but there almost very little lacing.
Yeah.
I still got a little head on mine.
Yeah, there's a little bit, but I think it's kind of weak. We'll see if that improves.
Combination was good.
Flavor, I gave it a 14 out of 20. I think it's got a good malty flavor, a very mild hops flavor. It's well balanced. It does have a slightly sweet aftertaste and a hint of clove. Not an overpowering flavor, but there's definitely something there. And mouthfeel, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I think it's got good body and carbonation. It's definitely nice and warm and creamy. But again, it's still slightly astringent due to age. And then overall impression, I gave it a 7 out of 10. So I got a 33. So how'd you rate it there, Scott?
Well, I got for aroma, I gave it a 9 out of 12. My comments were it smells okay to good. Kind of a toffee coffee sort of aroma going on there.
Yeah.
For appearance, I think it looks good. I like the carbonation a little bit better even than the first one. The lacing is a little less, but my head retention was fine. I gave it a 3 out of 3 because it's hard for me to, you go to 2 out of 3, that's 33%.
Yeah.
It seems like a really hard hit, so I've been giving them all 3 out of 3 because they don't look too bad.
Oh, yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, they list 3 things,
yeah.
color, clarity, and head retention. And I figure that each one worth a point.
Yeah,
That's just what I'm thinking.
Right? For flavor, I got cloves, and I got a little hot alcohol finish on it, a little hot flavor. I gave it a 15 out of 20. Though. I really like the beer. Yeah, I'm not sure I could call it a name or ale. The carb is good. It was warm, a bit hot. I got it again under the mouthfeel. It's flavor and mouthfeel are kind of related for me, I guess. I gave it a 4 anyway out of 5, which is probably a little high. But I think I have to go down to tensible points in some of these things. And then I give it an 8 out of 10 on overall impression. I think it's a nice winter holiday brew. I think it's still a bit young.
Yeah. What'd you get on the bottom here?
So 39.
Again, I think that next week when we taste this again, it's going to improve because from week 1 to week 2, I think is a big difference in these beers. I think once you get to week 3, I don't think there's going to be a huge change in flavor unless it's a bigger beer or something like that. Bottle inspection. It's a bottle. This is much clearer.
Oh yeah, guess I got the bottom of the bottle.
Sorry about that. I wasn't thinking. It's so darn clear.
Yeah, I ended up giving this beer a 36 out of 40, or 50 for the total score. From the aroma, I didn't think there was a whole lot of aroma, period. But not much. I think it's still kind of young, and I kind of smell cloves going on in there, whatever that seems to be. And for appearance, it's clear. I think it's too dark for an amber still. The head's fine. It has a little bit of lacing, which I liked. It has some floaters in it. I ended up giving that 2 out of 3 there, mostly because of the floaters. But I guess if you know they're there, you can leave them in the bottom of the bottle.
Yeah, that was my fault.
Flavor, I taste and smell cloves and a little bit of minty going on. I'd like to look at this recipe again and see what we had, what the yeast was and what we used, what the hops were. It still tastes young to me, and it has a warm alcohol. I don't remember how big this is, but it's, I thought it tasted a little warm there, and I'm giving it 15 out of 20. Mouthfeel, again, warm. The carb is good. I thought the mouthfeel is good. I mean, it seems it's as a beer should be. It's I really, so I gave it 4 out of 5. An overall impression, it's not my favorite beer. The clovey minty is a little strong, and not sure what it is, but it's just like it's maybe just because it seems young and green, maybe that'll mellow out a little bit. But at 5 weeks, I mean, I'm used to drinking young beer, and so but we got 7 out of 10 there. What did you think?
Would you have with 34?
36.
36, okay. Yeah, you actually came in a couple of points higher than me, and I think it's mostly on aroma. I gave it a 6 out of 12. It was, I think it smells sharp. When I just the smell of it was kind of off-putting, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And then on appearance, it's a little bit on the dark side for amber, but it is crystal clear. I wasn't real impressed with the head retention. The head went down really fast. I gave it a 2 out of 3. The malt and hops, I think, are well balanced. I mean, it's not sweet, it's not bitter. It's a well balanced in that respect, but it's got that slightly sharp flavor. It didn't taste as sharp as I expected it by smelling it, but you could still smell it and you could still taste it. The finish was pretty smooth, but it does have a slight aftertaste. That sharpness just keeps coming through, and I gave it a 15 out of 20. Mouthfeel, the body, carbonation, warm, creaminess, palate, all good, but it has a slight astringency, so I give it a 4 out of 5. Overall impression, 7 out of 10. It didn't improve as much as I expected it to. I thought it would, and I'm not sure it's going to improve a lot from here. I mean, it might, but I wouldn't count on it. I think this is just...
I would hope that some of that clovey, minty kind of melds and mellows a little bit.
It might. Maybe if we tasted it at 4 months.
If I didn't know, I'd swear you put cloves in this beer.
I don't know, I think all this work is starting to get in the way of our beer drinking.
Let's drink.
Alright, this is our episode 2, American Amber Ale. A little darker than an amber. Scott doesn't like it being called an amber.
It's a fucking stout.
No, E3 is a stout. Even though it says northern...
It looks like an amber.
Yep.
I'm not gonna get the drugs every time, am I?
No.
You can have the first one next time.
Yummy.
Episode 2.
Episode 2. American Amber Ale.
Smells like American.
And you were right, when these are cold, the head lasts a lot longer than when they're cellar temperature. So that's twice today I said you were right. So don't let it go to your
It's
head.
very unusual.
Don't let it go to your head.
Gosh, and you can't remember what they tasted like a week ago.
It has not been a week.
No, I think it tastes about the same as the last time I had it. What's that been, like 5 weeks ago? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's a little
Seems familiar.
I think it was pretty generous, but then you can have like this beer. I like it a lot better this time than I did last time.
I think it is a little better than. I think it would be even better cold. Anyway, alright, I gave it a 45 out of 50 is where I ended up.
I gave it a
Pretty-
35 out of 50.
Yep. I think it was
It's
pretty
just the way
generous.
it.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you start? Tell us what Julie.
I gave aroma. I gave it a 3 out of 12. I don't really taste the hops. It's super mild. Not a lot of aroma. Appearance, I gave it a 3 out of 3. I like the color and the clarity. The head on it is to my liking. Flavor, I gave it a 15 out of 20. The caramel flavor is kind of on the strong side, but it wasn't something that I objected to. The 5 out of 5 for mouthfeel. I thought it had good carbonation, and it's what I like. And an 8 out of 10 for overall impression. It had a good smooth caramel flavor with not a lot of hops, which is what I like.
All right. I gave it a 9 out of 12 on aroma. It doesn't have a lot of aroma, but what it has I think is pretty well balanced. The appearance, I did give it a 3 out of 3. It's nice and clear, the good head retention. The foam is yellow, which is appropriate for the style of beer. On the appearance, or on the flavor, I gave it an 18 out of 20. I think it's well balanced. It's got a good malt and hop flavor, good finish and aftertaste. All in all, pretty good. Mouthfeel, I gave it a 5 out of 5. Good body and carbonation. The warmth and creaminess are all there. I think it's really good. No real sharpness, no astringency, so I'm pretty happy in that respect. Overall, I give it a 9 out of 10. It's very pleasant. Came out at 44. What you got?
Well, I had to reassess here because I give it 10 out of 3. My first thing for the appearance.
You've been doing this well for a while. You should know better.
I haven't done it in a while, but okay. So for aroma, I give it a 10 out of 12. It smells like beer. It smells like it should. There's no. The smell isn't particularly strong or anything, but but didn't have much to comment. I'm not too wordy tonight, I guess. For appearance, okay, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 3. There's no reason to dock it there either. I think the head retention and foam could be better, but it might improve with the temperature change. Nothing, again, if you got to dock it a whole point, it's 33%, so there's 3 out of 3 there. For flavor, I gave it a 15 out of 20. I taste cloves in there more than I would like to. I don't know if it's the yeast we use in this beer.
I know you said that last time too.
Yeah, I think it tastes clovey to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if that's the way it tastes too, I mean, it's.
So, mouthfeel, I think it's a little warm too, and there's something about the carbonation on it is a little sharp. I don't know the right word to describe it, but it's like almost like champagne carbonation or something. Again, that might be a little colder. I might be better off with that too. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 there, and then overall impression I gave it a 7 out of 10. So adding that up, that probably brings me at about a 38 out of 50.
Geez, and for a minute there, I thought you were going to actually come in higher than me for a change.
Well, if I give it a 10 out of 3, I do.
And just so everyone knows, this is our Julie. She's normally one of our camera folk, but she got step in front of the camera tonight, and she's going to help us grade a few beers.
Drink beer. Okay.
Yeah.